What is up, beautiful people? Corwin L. Gilliams here from CLG Lifestyle. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to support the platform. That way you can stay connected to what it is that I do as a lifestyle influencer slash content creator. I create content revolved around self-development, self-empowerment, self-knowledge, self-mastery. And I believe as we learn, I believe it's important for us to share the knowledge, right? Share what it is that we have acquired because it may have changed your life, right? Your lessons learned, the experiences you have, the knowledge, your skills, right? Um, you can always share that with someone who you can always share it and believe that someone somewhere is going to gravitate towards your story. So today we're going to be talking about why you cannot allow ugliness to keep you down. And so I was talking about, on this journey of becoming self-development, self-improvement. Self-improvement will require a level of emotional indifference. And what do I mean by that? When someone is emotionally indifferent, it means that they do not allow, for the most part, there are exceptions, but for the most part, they do not allow external factors to have any major influence on their quality of life, whether that is decision making, relationships, you know, what you think has no influence on their identity, right? And so when when you are becoming, you're transforming your mind, you're reprogramming your mind, you're doing away with, old habits, old ways, you're getting new knowledge, you're getting new information. Your worldview is changing, your perspective is changing. You're outgrowing people, you're outgrowing groups, you're outgrowing family, you are growing. Your self-development is at the rate of, it's uncommon, right? Because I believe we're in a season where, you know you always say, this is a season of acceleration, right? This is a season where, yeah, and the word talks about this, how God can bless you so fast and so much that your head will spin. And I do believe that. I do believe that. So when you're on this journey to become, right, this man that in your heart you deserve more, a better quality of life, you deserve to have kids, you deserve to have a faithful marriage. You may have been married before and your partner was, um, unfaithful, right? So you're still believing in the sanctity of marriage, and you believe in God to send you another husband, another wife, depending on, who you are. And it's all of these things that we seek externally for some fulfillment. And the reality is you have to be filled with yourself first. It sounds cliche, I know, but they say when you hear the same truth multiple times, then it's fair to conclude that it's the truth. And every self-developing coach, philosopher, spiritualist, however you want to, whatever, they will tell you that you have to be full with yourself, full within yourself. And so a lot of the times you don't know what that is. You don't know what that looks like. You never had someone to teach you what it means to find fulfillment within. So what do you do, right? So for many of us, we would have a spiritual awakening where, the compassion and the grace of God begins to Well, it didn't begin. It always was, right? Many of us, God has been watching over us vigilantly. He's been watching over us in times where you know we had no clue that it was the hand of God that preserved our lives. So God is watching over his faithful ones always in this world. But there are times where you know one second, guys. There are times where you feel not weak, but you feel like you need some type of fulfillment other than God, right? And I want y'all to distinguish. I want you to be able to distinguish between feeling fulfilled, like being full in yourself, and then still desiring to have normal human experiences, right? A great relationship, children, family, legacy, right? Typically, you're very rare you'll hear someone say they don't want any kids, right? But for the most part, people want to continue their lineage, right? Human beings are selfish like that for the most part, right? We want to, or we should want to continue our lineage, right? We should want to continue our legacy, right? And so sometimes, people can get it misconstrued that just because you're full with yourself or that you're happy and you're at peace and you're okay with being alone, somehow, some way they assume that you don't want to be in a relationship or you don't want to have, a family oriented experience, right? Or that you don't want to have, or that you don't want to, you know, it's just weird. And so I find that even when I speak about God and the Bible, I'm mindful of, just I'm mindful of critical thinking. I'm mindful of, you know, open to interpretation because I'm very much aware that it doesn't matter what I say. God can speak to you however He wants to speak to you. And so, whether you understand the message, whether you understand what I'm saying, or whether you understand what I'm saying right now, if you understand it or not, you may not be ready to understand what I'm saying right now, right? It may be a little bit more spiritually mature, right? For your taste. In a couple years, you might come across my content and be like, oh, wow, now I understand what this guy is talking about. Because I've had that experience on my walk where I have had to discontinue, listening to a preacher because I didn't understand, I could not understand his spiritual language. I've had that moment. And so I've just learned to just be patient be full, right? Be good with where you are at. Always want more. Always, again, another misconception is that because you're full of yourself, you don't want. And when I say full of yourself, I mean full as in, you're at peace with yourself. You have accepted yourself wholeheartedly. Another thing people assume is that you don't want to grow more, that you don't want to evolve even more, and that's another misconception because after you've done a level of self development and self work, and you actually know, you can recognize the change, you can recognize the shift in your personality, you can recognize the shift in your income, you can recognize a shift in your family, right? You were once single, now you married, and you have two twins on the way, right? You recognize these experiences eventually as you grow and you self-develop, right? And so self-development is not just, I mean, sometimes you can. I do believe you can have a season where you work in a minimum wage job and it's enough just to get by. It's enough just to pay the bills. But your main focus should be self-development. You should be reading books. You should be developing a skill. You should be working on your body, right? You should be focusing on healing and doing the inner work, right? In those seasons where you're not stressed with the hustle and bustle, but you have an opportunity that's just right for you as you work on the other areas of your life, because God is transitioning you out from the matrix. He's transitioning you out from, the wilderness into the promised land where you are going to eat the best of the best. You're going to have the pick of the litter. You know what I'm saying? You're going to have that peace and that abundance and freedom. This is what most people, but men, that's one of the things that that's like the core reason for hustling and pursuing, whatever, or trying to figure out what our mission is, or what our purpose is because, one, that's what we were created to do. And this is why when, people are not in there, and when I say man, it can go interchangeably as man and woman. I'll specify specifically, but, one of the reasons why some people think, that it's like you just have to believe. You just have to believe. You just have to, really know. And as I said, continue to do the work. You don't have to necessarily have your self development as like another job, but it's best that you invest just as much energy, just as much focus, just as much commitment that you would to someone else's opportunity, someone else's job, someone else's vision. I believe you should do the same for yourself. And that is what we want to do here. That is what we're doing here. We want to allocate the same level of energy and commitment that we would give to someone's business. We want to do it for ourselves. So, for example, you may be working a 9 to 5 or a job. You go to job, you go to work, you make sure that you're on time, you make sure that you're following procedures, you're following the rules, you're making sure that you are fulfilling your end of the bargain as far as your job qualifications. Now, when we get to our time, we need to, and I want you to perceive the power in structure. It's the strategy in structure and the motivation in structure. So everything that is required of you for your job, for the most part, has been documented. It has been scheduled. They're going to tell you when you need to take your break, when you need to do this, when you need to do that, right? Everything is structured, right? So that the expectations that has been met based on trial and error, based on best practices, they have now said, okay, this is the amount of time allotted to get this done. This is what we feel is sufficient for your break time or for your lunch time. This is what we feel how much you need to get done within this quantity of work you need to get done without compromising the quality within this frame of time. So everything is structure. The time, on a rotational basis every day, right? Some schedules are planned out 2 weeks, sometimes months in advance. So everything is structured, and so we need to apply structure. Many of us, myself included, I didn't realize how important structure is for my learning development, for my mental health. I need to have, and I'm growing in the emphasis of this, I need to have things planned out. I find that when I have my day planned out, when I have, and even if it's a simple jot down of what I plan to do for the day, I find that when I do write it down and made a conscious effort to do it, I get it crossed off, as opposed to I get it done, as opposed to saying I'm gonna do something and then I never get to it because I forget it, and it's like all these different thoughts, that's in the brain, right? And having to regulate my nerves, or regulate your nerves, so that you can be more sensitive to the spirit, right? To Holy Spirit, or more sensitive to even your inner wooing, or your inner manner, and what's going on in here, right? And that takes stillness, that takes peace, that takes Like I was saying, God will give you a job where it's providing just what you need. It's not stressful. It's none of those things. And this allows you to focus on purpose, focus on developing purpose, whether that's reading your word, whether that's, upskilling, whether that's, going, as they say, ghost mode, where you're like now focused completely on body transformation, business transformation. And you come out when you're done in like 6 months to a year, you come out to a new man. You come out a new man. And today's January 1st, 2026. So I know I talked about New Year's resolution and just what I believe people should just roll into the new year. Don't do no resolution. Just continue where you left off from December 31st, 2025. Continue that into, just continue, and then just try to make a conscious effort. As I was saying, writing down, you'll be surprised to know how much writing down things. I know it may be old school, old fashioned. Yes, I use digital apps and things like that, but there's nothing like the experience of writing down, your ideas, or writing down when you're learning and studying, writing it as opposed to typing it. There is scientifically proven, with hand-eye coordination, it contributes to effective information retaining, right? Being able to retain information, right? That is a muscle in the brain that needs to be exercised. And so, do not let people, as you're going through life, as you are developing and becoming, right? You'll find that there are going to be experiences that are going to try to keep you down, that are going to try to make you feel like giving up. It's going to try to turn you evil, turn you the other way, And every time you encounter those situations, you need to just make a decision within yourself to say, you know what, you're not going to fold. You're just not going to compromise, certain aspects of your integrity, your character. You're just not going to compromise it. And you're going to lose out. You're going to lose out on opportunities you felt could have changed your life. You're going to lose out on relationships and people because it just didn't work out for whatever reasons. They just could not accept you, the you that you're becoming. And you have gotten to a level in your self-knowledge and experiences where you have like zero tolerance for BS, especially when you discern manipulative people or people who are not genuine, right? It's like we have to deal with them. That's what it means to be socially intelligent, is to be able to commingle with different people from all different backgrounds and experiences. But there are those experiences that we really don't care for, you know what I'm saying? But we do have the skills to be able to maneuver through a room, even if it's full of vultures, right? So that is so you never have to, just keep growing, keep growing as you continue to grow, as you continue to become more self-aware. Your boundaries are going to be stronger, firmer, more refined. You're going to find that you don't really care. You obviously don't really care, what you do from the heart. You do because you're inspired. It's not because you're trying to manipulate anybody or trying to, puppet people. It's just you, whatever it is that you do and you're celebrated for, you do it because it's out of your heart. You just love to do what you do, right? I believe you will get rewarded for that. I believe when you have allowed yourself to be immersed in your calling, right? Immersed in the gifts and the talents. One of them in the Bible talks about the gift of service or serving, right? This is why some of y'all may or may not be a traditional entrepreneur, in that whatever your service is, or whatever it is that you were created to do, you would rather be in a position to serve in that capacity, right? I'm not talking about serving as far as like serving as far as because you can serve as an entrepreneur as well, right? Service is, I mean, the greatest who has ever lived served us, right? So I want you to understand the context of service that I'm talking about, right? That's what I'm trying to break down. And so as you continue to grow and to become and to establish yourself, you're going to have these experiences that are going to try to change you and make you become someone else. You know, you may be tempted to, compromise certain aspects of yourself, but you don't have to give in to the temptation. That is the key. And that is what I found in every situation that I was able to successfully overcome at some point. For every Goliath that I was able to slay, right? It was as a result of the help of the Holy Spirit. It was the empowerment of the Holy Spirit. And it came about as an act of obedience. When it's like when it's like you refuse to fight the carnal way, you refuse to be manipulative, you refuse to be all these things. You're like, you know what, God, I'm just going to continue to do good and to do my work and to serve. But you handle these things, handle these situations, because I'm not here for that. And every time God has come through for me. You know what I'm saying? Every time. There was not a time where I did not surrender to God in a situation that there's some situations, it's literally a spiritual, it's like a prison. It's like you don't know how to get out. And the only person that knows how to get you out is God. And so we cry out to him in those moments where we're genuinely seeking him, and he hears us. Because oftentimes when we are going through unfortunate experiences, that is when we tend to be most humble. That is when we want to eat a humble pie, right? And in that condition and in that state, in that condition and in that state, spiritually, you're in, someone say a frequency, or in a state as well where, because you're in that state of humility and openness to, the answer. It's like God hears you, it's like he's hearing you, right? And oftentimes it takes us having to be in very low situations, unfortunately, for us to be humble. And that's why I do believe that some experiences will require people to have seasons of low living, right? Or not, or maybe I shouldn't say low living, but seasons of, where you have just enough to get by, right? Because there is maybe a conditioning within you that needs to be at a standard when it comes to living your God identity purpose. Now, there are a lot of purposes and careers and identities out there that you can model your life after someone else's identity. That's why there's a lot of, what do they call, impersonators. I mean, to really study, to be such a fan of someone to that degree, right, as most of them are, and then to study their attributes and to live their life, making money, impersonating someone famous, it's not really much value, I mean, perceived value, at least, you know what I'm saying? I don't know, I'm not judging. The mindset is just that you would think that as a human being made in the image and likeness of God, that you would want to explore your unique divine qualities and make that your focus, embody that, right, as opposed to someone else. But that is just a more blatant expression of impersonation, and how we pretend to be people that we're not. And some impersonators are so good, right? You're like, wow, they're really good. but you're still not real. You're still not the real one. You're still not, you know what I'm saying? So it still comes down to it being a waste. And so I feel like the energy and power that you exert in being manipulative and with selfish ambition can just be energy you use to figure out why you're that way. Why? Let's figure out the trauma. Let's get to some healing, right? So I feel like that's what I would exert that energy towards, figuring out why I feel jealousy or why I feel envy or why I feel this way about that, right? Why I know that it is not good because I'm getting a check in my spirit. So why do I feel this way? Let's get to work. Let's do the work. But a lot of people, they ignore the signs, the feelings, they push it aside, and they don't know how to channel or internalize, or maybe the truth is the feeling has to get expressed in some way or some form. And what you'll find is that most times when people are oppressing their true feelings, that oppression is exchanged in some type of external outbreak, how should I say, in some type of physical expression. That person has to exchange that negative or positive energy. When we're happy, what do? How do we feel when we're happy? We sing, we're joyful, we're generous. We have to express that happiness. We have to exchange that energy. It's the same thing when it comes to anger, jealousy, resentment. All of these things require a bodily exchange, if that makes sense. So whether you're consciously aware of that exchange and what it looks like, or subconsciously you acted in ways because that's basically what you saw growing up. However it is, it's going to be a response. So the more you know about yourself, the more you know, who you are, and the more you commit to fulfilling that identity, everything is just going to work. Things are just going to align. And it's like your life just continuously gets better. That's all I'm going to say. I'm going to close it out like that. Your life continuously gets better when you have decided to go on a vision, on a mission, on a journey to becoming from a boy to a man. I don't care how old you are right now. My journey to manhood started at 26, 27. It wasn't at 14, 13, 12. It wasn't. No, my journey to manhood, my journey to what I believe to be God's developmental plan for me, because I didn't have a traditional household as far as a mother and a father, two-parent household. I didn't have that. And so I believe God, as he does for many and for all, whom he loves and who loves him, that he, even when we didn't love him, he'll provide a way for you to be restored, right? Restored to his original blueprint, his original plan, his original design, before all of the trauma, before all of the hurt, the pain, the lies, the deception, before all of that. God has a supernatural restoration plan, facilitated by the power of his Holy Spirit, which you get when you're born again. When you're born again, you have an awakening or a reconnection with God, who now is the Lord of your life and Savior of your life. And he begins to, as you grow in your relationship, you begin to know him more, grow in the knowledge and understanding of who God is. And as a result, you grow in the knowledge and understanding of who you are, because that is the effect. It's the more I learn about God, the more I understand who God is, the more I understand who I am, because that is how God is going to feed you with the truth about your identity, your purpose, your calling, and all things associated with you and the people that God has called you to for your generation. Okay. So identity is very important. Identity is what we talk about here. It's been a recurring theme because I just cannot believe, for so long, so many of us, myself included, have subscribed to perverted, corrupted, false, prideful, egotistical versions of identities and perspectives and mindsets that no wonder we lived the shitty lives that we lived. No wonder we had no purpose. No wonder we abused our bodies and abused people. No wonder we pretended and deceived to get what we wanted. No wonder we did these things because we were so oppressed, so low, right? So dark, so disconnected. And so that was an identity, right? So even though we're talking about identity, what identity? And so the identity that CLG lifestyle promotes is that of one, a King David descendant. However you want to take that spiritually, if you want to take it physically, it doesn't matter to me. According to the Holy Bible, even Jesus Christ himself is revealed as a King David descendant. So we are King David descendants. We are men after God's own heart. Two, part of our identity is, of course, Christ in me, the hope of glory, right? Christ is the promised Messiah that was told to King David, our ancestor, right? Three, part of your identity is your purpose, okay? So as you grow in self-knowledge, automatically the revelation of your purpose, your calling, all of that is just going to manifest itself because you have now positioned yourself. It's kind of like the fruit doesn't come before the seedlings, right? It's a process to maturity. The fruit doesn't come before the seedling. It doesn't come before the seed. It's a seed, and then there's a course of action or a process, right? Okay, in the life of a plant, in the life of whatever, there's a process from beginning to end, right? And in this example, that fruit comes after. So we need to develop ourselves to the point where we begin to bear fruit, and the fruit is evident based on our lifestyles, okay, based on our financial wealth, our relational wealth, our physical wealth, our social wealth, the wealth in our community, as far as how impactful, are we, right? Excuse me. How impactful are we, right? So this is how you begin to see the manifest power of God through your identity, by simply you being the light that he created for you to be. With that being said, my name is Corwin L. Gilliams. I am the creator of CLG Lifestyle. CLG Lifestyle is all about influencing you to love self, because we believe the more you know God, the more you understand God, who is love, the more you can love and recognize who you are and begin to live a life that reflects that you love yourself. It's one thing to say you love yourself, but your choices communicate otherwise. All right. I love you all so much. CLGlifestyle.com. That is www.clglifestyle.com. That way you can check out my articles, blogs, and the things that I have in that realm. And then on social media, I am on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook at CLG Lifestyle, just like that, at CLG Lifestyle. That being said, thank you again so much for watching. Until next time, Happy New Year.